Welcome back, everyone, to the Visionary Speaker Series at One Earth Live. Today, I'm really excited to introduce James Maskell, a brother and dear friend. James is a passionate healthcare visionary whose work is at the intersection of community and medicine. Welcome, James.
Great to be here with you, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a great weekend so far at One Earth Live. It's amazing to see so many artists and visionary speakers and activists and youth leaders all coming together, and Indigenous elders. So really, it's a great honor to have you here. And I'd like you to start by just sharing a little bit about your journey and what really inspired you to devote yourself to medicine and evolutionary medicine.
Yeah, so I actually had a sort of a different entry into the world where I was born on a community in Colorado. And the healthcare that I was given by my parents was natural health. And I didn't think that that was abnormal until I showed up at school and realized no one knew what a chiropractor was. So I kind of realized that I'd been given this sort of interesting window into a whole different world that no one else had. I had a rebellious phase where I thought I need to be an investment banker, and I did a degree in health economics. And then about a year into my first job in London, I just had a moment of clarity that ultimately, in my health economics training, I'd seen that, in all major countries across the world, the cost of care was going up in almost like an exponential fashion. And it was going to bankrupt all the countries around the world, no matter whether you lived in like America with whatever hodgepodge system of healthcare we have here, or England, where I grew up, where they have a single payer system. Something was driving costs to just go up again exponentially. And I wanted to understand, what that was, because it was an imminent threat to humanity. And so I moved to America 15 years ago, and I got involved in medicine. And I started the first job that I took, I worked in a clinic where I saw people reversing their chronic diseases. I saw the transformation of people. I saw people go from, in some cases, like on 10 medications to being off medications in 3 months, 6 months. I saw people getting out of wheelchairs, and I realized, if we're going to bend the curve, we need to get vast swathes of the population well. Self-efficacy, where people are just well and independent of the medical system and live independently until their 9th and 10th decades. And so as soon as I saw that, I just thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And ultimately, it's been a 15-year journey since then to really understand that medicine, right? Really understand, how do you get people off medication? How do you create self-efficacy in groups of people? And that's taken me through, first of all, learning a lot, like serving doctors, doing that kind of care. And then in the last 6 years, building international communities of doctors trained in functional and integrated medicine, helping those doctors build practices that could allow that kind of medicine to be delivered to all people, not just richer people. And then in the last couple of years, been innovating in community, both in terms of group medical visits and, having doctors treat people in groups, and also creating new models of insurance that are built on collaborative, community, cooperative models rather than capitalistic models.
Wow, what a great journey! Like allowing the community to all have this access is amazing. So, I mean, you're obviously connected to so many doctors and such a frontier of this evolutionary medical world. Can you share a little bit what's happening in the field? I mean, what's coming through this process of the COVID moment?
Yeah. Well, COVID is a really amazing moment in so many ways. It's the first time that everyone in the world is doing the same thing and thinking about the same thing, in history. My father was alive in World War II, and even in that, people around the world were having a very different experience. It wasn't the same being in England or South Africa or, Colombia, whereas now it's pretty much all the same. The thing that is clear for me is this: what COVID has done has unmasked that many people could interact with the same microbe and have a vastly different experience, right? So 80% of people, they don't even know they got it because they have absolutely no symptoms. A certain number of people have mild symptoms, some people have a serious infection, and some people die. So the obvious question is, what is the difference between the people who die or have a serious infection and the people who don't? And age is certainly a piece of it. But the reason why age is a piece of it is because what happens, the body over time and through different reasons, the function of the body breaks down. And when the function of the body breaks down to a certain degree, then the same bug, the same virus, the same issue, the same, sort of common factor to everyone has a more outsized effect. And in previous times with things like smallpox and other microbes that were, it was a lot more of a uniform effect. And so what this particular thing has done is to show that different people have different amounts of immune resilience. And having worked in functional medicine now for 15 years, I see that immune resilience isn't really something that's done to you. Yes, it breaks down over time. And that's why a lot of older people have passed through this time. And yes, there are random outliers of young people that you might know who suddenly died. But in general, immune resilience is something that is modifiable. And all of us can improve our immune resilience individually and ideally also in community, because actually community is one of the strongest factors that affects our immune resilience. And so I think this is an opportunity for the world to wake up to the fact that we have a lot more power ourselves and as communities to affect, are we going to be hard to kill, right? Do we have real resilience in ourselves, in our families, in our communities, and then nationally and internationally? And I think this concept of immune resilience and resilience generally is an idea whose time has come. And I think that many people are seeing that reality through their own eyes. And I see it through the eyes of, chronic disease. And so I'm excited about the world waking up to this new reality.
Amazing. And can you share a little bit more about like community resilience? What is that?
Yeah, so, ultimately we all have a certain level of resilience to this microbe, and there's a number of things that can affect it, right? So, so let's say xenobiotics, chemicals in our environment can break down the receptors in our body. Essentially, the immune system, the nervous system, and the gut microbiome are the things that sort of modulate whether or not we get sick, right? You get the same microbes come in, and sort of like as the body takes in those senses, and senses the pathogen, you have a different response. And so ultimately, we can rebuild the function. So a perfect example is, 70 or 80% of our immunity is in our gut, right? And the integrity of the gut lining from your mouth to your colon is something that, degrades over time if you eat unhealthy food, or if you have a lot of stress, or if you don't sleep and regenerate properly, or if you don't exercise, or if you don't have good quality relationships. That degrades over time. And if it degrades, then the same pathogen or the same thing coming in will cause a lot more havoc compared to someone who has a very, strong integrity with that gut. And so individually, we can all do that. The problem is that changing behavior is not easy. And in order to make that change, you're going to have to change behavior. And some people are forced into it, Chris. Like, you get an autoimmune disease and you're the only one in your community that does. It can be profoundly isolating to now have to try and make these changes. But the exciting thing is, and this is why I wrote the book, The Community Cure, is that when you get people together who all have that same problem, they can support each other to make those kind of changes. And this shouldn't be a surprise. Like, we've known for 80 years that how do we help alcoholics, right? Alcoholics don't need drugs and doctors. They need accountability and support. And so ultimately, what's emerging is a new way of looking after lifestyle-driven chronic disease, and actually just a new way to be together, which is groups of people supporting each other to be healthy. And the good news is it's not expensive, it's available to anyone, and through technological mediums, we can even do it in isolation.
Great. And do you think this COVID moment where we've had this pause with all, with all the families across the world, all of us, all the communities, do you think that people are ready now to go forward and deepen their connection as community?
I think for everyone, I feel there's like a yearning in all of us for this to end. And we don't necessarily all know to give the words to it, that it's, that it's community, but I think we all feel it. We all feel like we like being with people, and different people are different. Like my dad's kind of an introvert. I think he loves it. He loves being at home. No one's bothering him. He doesn't have to go out. I think people are different, but in general, we're a social species, and I feel like there is that yearning, but also that is affecting us on a physiological level, whether we know it or not. And it's affecting our, inflammatory pathways, our immunity function, and immune resilience is being effective in different ways. So I think, yes, there is a desire. I think, why did people suddenly change their behavior to be indoors? One is because they wanted to keep themselves healthy. And two is because they care about each other. And I think that that's a big piece. And so I think that we've seen when there's a real desire from groups of people to take care of each other, that people have like gone above and beyond to do that. And so ultimately it's now, can we take that energy and shift it towards getting groups of people to support each other in being healthy and building up immune resilience and creating more resilient communities.
Thank you. So what steps do you think need to happen? What are like the major steps that need to happen so we don't go back to business as usual? Because as we all know, we sort of tend to forget pretty easily too as a collective.
Yeah, look, the major steps is the message that I'm sharing now is kind of nowhere, right? And the idea that chronic disease is our big issue. COVID in terms of deaths, it's a blip, right? It's a blip compared to the things that kill most people. And ultimately, if we really hone in on the things that kill most people and the level of chronic disease in America, the UK, it's going up, and everywhere. Look at India, right? India, every country, and South Africa is the same. This shift from the biggest killers being microbial based to being like lifestyle based. In America, that took 50 years. In South Africa, that took 10 years to go from TB to type 2 diabetes. These are the things that are really important. And type 2 diabetics have a lot less resilience when something like COVID comes along. So, the first thing is we have to get the message out. And there are amazing, events like this where I think that, people are ready to listen to something that's empowering and something that's not based in fear, something that's based in love and kindness and generosity and empowerment. And so I think that the people listening to this right now, like you might be the seed of the revolution in your community because you understand it. And whether you're now after this, whatever you're doing, there could be so many things that you could be doing to build immune resilience in your community. And it might be growing food, and it might be sharing that food with others. It may be, exercising or stress reduction together or being in nature. Nothing gets you a stronger and more resilient and more diverse microbiome than being in nature. You can't get it through a supplement. You can't get it through a probiotic. Like being in nature, there's almost nothing that does it. And so I think that the desire to be in nature, the desire to be with other people will come around. And, ultimately we have to also understand, Chris, and I think this is a big deal too. We can't live independent from microbes. Right? The number of microbes that are literally everywhere around us all the time is so big that there's not even a name for it. You have to say 10 to the 15 or 10 to the 30 because there's not even a word for it. And so ultimately the idea that we can live sort of like away from microbes is an old concept. And ultimately what we need to be is in harmony with microbes, and we are in harmony with microbes generally. And viruses actually facilitate evolutionary changes to maintain homeostasis. And so I think in a certain way, this is just the planet saying, hey, we need a new normal, and not the kind of new normal we're talking about in the press. The new normal is love and peace and connectivity. And I think that it's giving us the opportunity to do it. Whether we take that opportunity really depends on us.
Amazing. And you mentioned something about the viruses, like they're important to our sort of evolution. So do you think like everybody is so fanatical right now about, wiping their hands with all these different disinfectants and the mask? I mean, is that causing more damage than actual allowing us to sort of just bring it into the field?
Put it this way, like me sneezing on you is one way for you to get microbes, but there are plenty of other ways, like being outside, going in the ocean, like the number of viruses in the ocean, in the air, there's so many. And ultimately, there are certain precautions that can help the spread person to person, but ultimately you can't stop the spread. And all you have to do, Chris, is look back at MERS and SARS and what came before. Because, SARS, when SARS came around, it was a big deal, especially in Asia, but no one even thought about it for the last 15 years because it didn't do anything, because it kind of went through its cycle and went away. And ultimately, I think that's the biggest thing that we have to focus on is that it's likely that people are going to come into contact with the microbe, and we can't really get away from it. And ultimately, what we need to do is to build more resilient populations, because stresses are always there, risks are always there. And ultimately, you'll see that the people that, really come through it well are people that are high functioning. And the best way to, facilitate high functioning over time is not boosting your immune system. I think that concept is kind of, in certain cases, you really don't want to boost. Like, boosting your immune system is kind of an old concept. What you really want to do is stop the things that are reducing your immune function. And toxicity, stressful lifestyle, food that is, not from nature, but from packages, not exercising, not having community. These are all things that are always rejuvenating our immunity, and we need to do more of those. And ultimately, the community structure is really the only way that I've seen to be able to consistently, change behavior. Like, if we're going to build a system on behavior change, then we need to think about what changes behavior, and groups is the way that that's been done in alcoholism, in cigarette smoking, and if you look at the blue zones in the world, the places that live to 100 without levels of chronic disease, it's because they have really strong community bonds that reinforce healthy behaviors.
And if I was, someone out in the global community watching you right now, like where can I go to get this inspiration and start building sort of a roadmap, if you like, towards building community, my own community?
Well, look, there are organizations that already have groups that don't cost anything to join. Like, I've been a member of a group for men called the Mankind Project, and I meet once a week with my Mankind brothers, and we, have an opportunity to, process my week with emotionally mature men. And for me, like, the impact on that, on my health and my life and my marriage and my being a father has been incredible, and it's free. And I just go every week. So those kind of solutions are available. Like, in cancer, there's communities called Healing Strong, where if you want to do natural therapies and be supported by a group of other people who want to support you on your health journey, whether or not you decide to go on your chemo and radiation journey, like the building the resilient human in the meantime, there's chapters all around the world. We've built chapters of the Functional Forum, which is functional medicine doctors and other practitioners getting together to learn. And we've got some super exciting things in the next few years to roll out to really create communities of practitioners around. So, the good news is, Chris, is that it's really good. It's easier today to find people in your community that have very specific goals and desires than it ever was, because of the internet. And so, using Meetup and Eventbrite and Facebook and some of these, technologies that have the potential to create community, you can use online tools to create offline connections. And I think we're all in a place right now where we have to use a certain amount of online tools, but ultimately in the medium term, what if there were connections that were made at this moment that ended up turning into, ongoing relationships throughout? And I think that's the vision that I would hold for people, is that you start with, we all start with finding people who are like us and people who, we can help and can help us. Whatever topic that would be around, it could be a disease state, it could be a thing that you want to learn, and that ultimately we come out the other side with everyone having a supportive social circle. And when I say supportive social circle, this isn't like, I'm sure, I want to talk about kind of an elephant in the room with community, is that I understand that a lot of us, probably all of us, have been part of traumatic communities, right? For some people, it's their family. For some people, it was like high school for most people probably. And then maybe your first job. Like, you don't want to be vulnerable in front of people, because look what happened when I was vulnerable in front of a group of people. All the groups that I've just discussed, and the group that you're going to be in or start if you're listening to this, is not that. You know, this is groups of humans who care about each other, coming together with a shared intention to solve each other's problems, and to, you know, to live through purpose, and to share their purpose with everyone else, and to have everyone support them in achieving that purpose. And that is a technology that has existed for millennia, and it happened around fires, and it happens in circles, and it's part of all the healing traditions. And that is, you know, sitting in circle, connecting with others, and, you know, just being empathetic to your fellow man.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, in my life as well, it's been, that's why I think music culture has played such an important part, because like the festival, like bringing people together to celebrate through music and dance, and then have those discussions that happen around in that space as well, starts building that sort of connective tissue of community. And yeah, it's been an interesting time with this COVID, because the amount of community connection is so big now, because everybody's online and doing Zoom calls and Zoom, you know, events. And that's been interesting to see the innovation that's happened in the space on so people, like you said, I mean, I totally agree. Like, people just yearn to be connected. Yeah, that's what we're sort of hardwired for, is this connection. What has been for you through this whole amazing, you know, pause moment called COVID? What has been some of the gems that you've actually felt and experienced?
Well, you know, one of the things that's really settled down to me, like, you know, I wrote the book early this year on group medical visits and how groups of people could reverse their chronic diseases. And I saw that, you know, that this was effective for pregnancy, which is not a disease, right? But, you know, preterm birth is an issue, and we don't, you know, connect that with like lifestyle stuff. But getting women who are pregnant, who are isolated, into groups, it reduces preterm birth by 35%. You know, all the chronic diseases have structures, and places like the Cleveland Clinic, they're doing 10-week, 2-hour-a-week group programs where half the people reverse their chronic illness. So, you know, I've documented that. And I guess what I've been looking for is could there be sort of one structure that you could take people through that would affect all chronic diseases? And what is that central structure? And actually, you know, it's immune resilience. And that's why I think it's really hot. And so, you know, what I saw at the beginning of COVID, when I got back from hanging out with you in India, I came back and I realized, like, you know, we've been teaching doctors to build these telemedicine infused health coach driven practices that would be kind of resilient to this kind of shock for 6 years. But I realized that, you know, we needed to continue to make access to this kind of care much more affordable, much more accessible. And so, you know, one of the things that we have launched in this time, like working together with my team, is this idea of an immune collaborative, which is essentially a group of people meeting online, being part of a community, not on Facebook where like all your data is being sold eventually to someone, but being in a HIPAA-controlled environment with a group of people, with an advocate who has already reversed their chronic disease, and to have groups of people coming together to chart a journey towards self-efficacy, to take the locus of control away from some doctor who's going to save them, whether that be, you know, conventional medicine or functional medicine. Bring the locus of control into yourself, and to be able to have a group of people to support each other in doing that. You know, if there's going to be a second wave, we've got to make ourselves hard to kill, right? And groups of people doing that together. So I came back from India. I realized like that was a thing that I could do. And over the last 2 months, we've rolled out the Immune Collaborative, and we've got people joining, and it's really already amazing to see. People are learning about themselves. Like, one of the cool things about functional medicine is you really understand how you got where you are, right? One of the most frustrating things I think people find out is they're like, how did I get lupus? Like, what happened? How did I get this disease? Like, I didn't have that many symptoms here or there, but like, what happened? Functional medicine can answer that question by taking you deep into your history, like what happened, and groups of people doing that together, the aha moments just ping off, and people have these incredible realizations. And what they realize is we're all having a pretty similar experience. And that, for someone who's been the weird person in their family who had this autoimmune disease, the feeling of safety that's created by community cannot be replicated, not by meditation, not by food, not by anything. The safety that's created by community is completely unique. And we have to rebuild that. And while we can't be together in person right now, we're going to rebuild that on the internet. And when we're able to rebuild in person, we'll be so much stronger for it.
Amazing work, James. Totally amazing work. And is that available for people to join now? Like, is there a website that people can
if you go to findfunctional.com, which is the business, findfunctional.com, we launch these immune collaboratives at the beginning of every month.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Find, F-I-N-D, Find Functional. And the Immune Collaborative launches at the first week of every month. So we have a new group starting the first week in June and July, and it's a 12-week process. And in that 12-week process, you're going to become hard to kill. You and your family are going to go through a process of really getting clear. Like, what we found already is that everyone has a big list of stuff that they know they're doing that's unhealthy, that they do it. And that could be foods they eat, could be like relationships that they maintain. It could be all kinds of things. And ultimately, what we don't need is a huge list of other things to put on top of that list. What we really need is the help of people to get into that stuff. And what we've seen is that when people get into that stuff and do it as a group, the transformation happens so quickly. And because it's in a group structure, it can be affordable for everyone.
Amazing. Wow, great work. And would you like to share one more, if you were going to we're going to end our moment here together.
Yeah.
Like to share one more thing to the global community?
I think just that, initiative can't be given. It can only be taken. And so if you're watching this right now, just to commit to yourself that in some way you're going to take some sort of initiative, either to help yourself, to put your oxygen mask on before you help someone else, or to help someone else. If you're already healthy, if you're already doing those kind of things, if you don't need that, there's plenty of other people that do. And if you look, accountability buddy, just even something as simple as that, can make a huge impact. So take the initiative to be of service and value to someone else. And maybe that person has to be yourself to start.
Thank you. Thank you so much, James. Well, it was a great honor to be here with you today in the Zoom room. And thanks for joining us at One Earth Live, and really appreciate and amazing work. Thank you so much for your work.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, thanks for putting this whole thing on. It's an incredible group of people that I'm sharing the stage with. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. That was James Maskell. We'll see you at the next One Earth Live Visionary Speaker Session. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome. Welcome.
Namaste.
Welcome to the Global Days of Unity.
From the minute that I heard about Global Days of Unity, I understood that it was the thing for this time. The incredible coming together of people, music, song, prayer, that it's like a massive infusion of energy into consciousness, into the world. And what I love about it is it's completely accessible by anyone, anywhere. And let's create that togetherness and that cohesion third weekend of every month.
Deep inhale to the center.
Today at this session, we have a wonderful panel, wonderful presenters.
It brings together a unity that I don't think has ever really truly been done correctly. And just learning about the initiative makes my heart warm.
Put our thought into it, we put intention into it, it can just be so powerful and can become so huge and have such a big impact.
I think what inspires me the most about the Global Days of Unity initiative is the experimental aspect of it, right? Like, this thing has never been done before. We've tried so many different things. We haven't tried people coming together with a sense of intention and joy. Let's try something new. Let's see what humanity can be. And I'm excited about that possibility.
If we send out love, then the world responds with love. So in Global Days of Unity, just imagine the consequence of a large number of people sending out wonderful thoughts of love, peace, and harmony, because we can change this planet, just by the thinking of those wonderful thoughts. And in community, we re-empower each other, but we can also empower the world.
I want to invite you.
The third weekend of every month.
Let us be together.
In the global days of unity.
Welcome home.